guys, picking up where we left off last time, I briefly went over my early childhood, going through elementary school, how I grew up, not to be so negative and everything, it was kind of like a dark cloud and whatnot during that time. But I started to find the light a little bit, and that's where we pick up here, right about 5th grade, where I'm playing pee-wee and micro midget and midget football and everything else. I started lifting and training on my own a little bit. So we're not doing it for football and all that. So right now, and you guys, as you know, I own my gym. It's called The Basement, and this is the original basement and everything else. And my dad did have some weight equipment down there. I started to find my outlet down there where I'd kind of hang out, experiment with lifting a little bit. Didn't really know what I was doing. I don't even think I bench pressed then. Did some like bicep curl stuff, some abs, sit-ups, push-ups, stuff like that. There's a punching bag and did a little bit of that crap. But I started realizing that it made me feel a little bit better, and it was kind of like my outlet, and going from there, I had, my parents are completely, they're divorced, they're separated. They don't live too far from each other though. Like I said before, they're sharing custody of us. So at the time, it's like we spent 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there kind of thing. Now, with the lifting, I also, when I would go stay at my mom's, she had her own weight set, but it was in the garage, and I was continuing to do that, and even some of my buddies, which I thought were buddies at the time, and stuff would come over and lift. And what I would do was experiment with the bench press then. I'm still in 5th grade and whatnot with my buddies, and we didn't know what we were doing. We had a bar, and I think it was all kilo style stuff. So, which, a 20 kilo bar is 44 pounds, still like a 45 pound bar, but like all the other weights were kilo weights. I didn't know what those were at the time, so I just did the pounds. They were like awkward weights, or like 33 pounds and like whatever, awkward plates and stuff. So, experimenting with that and not really testing it, just kind of going through the motions and stuff. And then, unfortunately, going into the 6th grade, I start to kind of slowly slip away from that for a little bit. I even stopped playing football. I don't know. I didn't really want to do it. Like I said, my dad always beating in my head that you suck, and all this other shit. I just was like, whatever, I'm going to suck. I don't want to do it. So I started doing stuff that I thought was fun. So I'm exploring life a little bit here. And I start hanging out with the wrong people. We had this little gang in New Bedford, and we used to ride our bikes and everything else. But we were getting in trouble. We started stealing shit. We started drinking and everything else. I remember the first time I actually drank. I was in the 6th grade, just turned 12 years old. We stole a case of beer from the Lions Club, and we took it back to one of the guys' houses and in the garage, and I think it was Rolling Rock, And so we started chugging that. So this is my first experience with that, and I get a hell of a buzz going, I think it was maybe 2 beers at the time, and that's all it took, So I started getting involved with that a little bit, and then we start getting even further down the road where we start, riding quads all over the place. We start vandalizing things. We start stealing things. I'm getting involved with the wrong crowd, in other words. So I'm at that point in time in my life where I'm experimenting with something else. And the funny thing is, it's not really funny, but it's actually a meth house now. But that was the house I used to party at all the time at that age. And there was just such a vast group of people from my age all the way up into their 20s. I mean, it was just like a band of misfits, And, at the time, we stole cars, quads, I mean, you name it, it was fucked up. It really was. Guys are doing drugs, they're selling drugs, they're dealing them. I'm just kind of hanging around it. I'm not really involved too much with that. I'm just there. I remember one of the big turning points for me was one night, and this is when I'm just in the 7th grade here. I believe, it would have been the end of summer, into the fall. They had one of those nights, big party night. There's a bunch of people there. I don't really do anything besides drink a couple beers. I'm not smoking weed. I'm not doing pills. I don't remember seeing like anything crazy like heroin or cocaine. So it was just like weed and pills. So these people were just high out of their mind. It's late into the night, early morning. They're all passed out on the floor and they look like death. And I remember being the only one up, and I'm just like kind of sitting on the couch, looking around, and I don't know, something inside of me told me like this isn't what I want. I don't want to be this. I don't want. It was confusing, you know. But at the same time, like something was telling me, this isn't what you want to do. Don't know what it was. So from there, I started distancing myself from those people. There was really no rhyme or reason. It's just like I said, it was just maybe my sixth sense, maybe my gut telling me like, no, this isn't the path you should be taking. I don't necessarily get back into sports, you know what I mean, or football. I'm still playing baseball at the time. You know, I'm in like farm league, so I'm at least doing that. So in the summertime, I at least play baseball still. But I just, you know, I was like at that fork in the road during that time, wondering where should I go? And I do remember one of my best friends at the time, and luckily is sober now, got addicted to those pills, was actually selling those pills in the 6th grade. And was addicted for years up until this past year, and thank goodness they're sober now and everything else and moving on. But that showed me later on in life, you know, we'll get there later down the road, that was the path I was taking, a path of just addiction, and that would have been my outlet. Instead, I went the other way, and knowing that something else was out there better for me, but unfortunately, that was the road less traveled. I could have stuck with that group because I felt like I fit in, I had a crowd, but I didn't. And there was really no rhyme or reason to why I strayed away from them. But I did it, and I went off, and I was a loner from there, kind of confused and lost still, don't really know where I fit in still, and whatnot. But I remember the head junior high coach during the 7th grade then getting a hold of me, and he's like, or in school, and he's like, I want you to play football. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, yeah, I started in, you know, Pee-wees, micros, and all that stuff, but it's just like, I suck. And that's all I kept thinking. Like, I was never good enough, you know, and that's back to my old man always ingraining in my head, you know, you suck kind of thing. And he's like, no, you're going to play. I want you to play, you know, and it's like, I'm already maybe 6 foot at the time. I think I was about $170, right around there. We'll say between 165 and 170 in the 7th grade. So I was one of the taller guys in my class, still went with my full potential and everything else. But finally he convinces me. And I'm like, okay. And instead of me going to do those terrible things after school, I'm now going to football practice. And this is the first time I enter a structured lifting program. So we start lifting after school, we're running, we're doing speed stuff. This is when I truly started to fall in love with progress, and I started to really climb out of that hole. And it was being in structure and seeing my progress in the weight room. And I remember, you know, barely being able to bench 95 pounds for one at the time. It was like a struggle. But within a month, I was able to do 3 sets of 10 with that. And then I started benching 135. And that's all I really knew. And we didn't really back squat, we front squatted. And I didn't really know what a feat that was, but by the 8th grade, I was able to front squat 225 for reps, and I didn't really think much of it, you know, because all the other guys in my class were very gifted too, and they were doing the same stuff. We all did the same weight. So I still didn't really think much of it. And leading into that, you know, we go into the summer, you know, I got that much stronger, I gained so much more, I felt faster, I start practicing with the football team, and automatically they got me started outside linebacker. And I'm a little slow to get the scheme, but at the same time I was very coachable. If my coach told me to jump, I said, how high? You know, no questions asked kind of thing. So I end up feeling like that little bit of success in the weight room, and then it crossed into the football field, and then I started gaining a little bit more confidence. I still wasn't that confident. I still had my insecurities and everything else, but I just didn't realize the significance of me actually starting. I just kind of took it for granted, but at the same time in the back of my head, it was never good enough, no matter what I did. So I didn't realize like what I was actually capable of. So from there, building into that, I go into the season, I start to realize like, oh, okay, you know, they set up this way, they set up that way, and I knew what the offense was doing before they even knew. Now give or take it's junior high. Like we ran like 3 plays, you know what I mean? So it's not like anything crazy. And going into the season, I got better every single game. And then me and my other buddy, he was a middle linebacker and fullback. I think he got more hits of the week than me. But either way, like we were like kind of back and forth with hits of the week and stuff. And I remember just like, actually funny story, now he was my teammate and everything else. And I never wanted to like hurt my teammates kind of thing. Now if you were the opposing guy, I didn't give a shit. But I remember him pulling around, leading for a waggle or a jet? I can't remember. But, he comes around and I'm like, okay, I got to hit him. And I hit him and I like deplete this guy, And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. And this and that. And the coaches were laughing and they're like, dude, it's fine. That's what you're supposed to do. Now get the ball. You know what I mean? But I was like, I was that guy who didn't want to like hit my teammates that hard, But when it came to game day, I didn't care. So when that crossed over, I was getting those big hits. I was getting those big tackles. I was actually leading our team in tackles. I think, now, what was our stat? My stat was like 12. I was almost averaging 12 tackles a game at one point. Like I was in every single play. So I was like the strong side outside linebacker, but I was still cutting across the field and still getting involved in some plays and everything else. And I did so well that, the head high school football coach came down and he actually selected some of us to go train with the varsity team too. And there was 5 or 6 of us, I believe. So we actually got to lift and train with the varsity team before we were even in high school. And then that only accelerated everything even more. But unfortunately, it wasn't really building my confidence that much. I just was kind of like, okay, whatever. I was still kind of going through the motions. And I wish I would have had, somebody there during that time to really help guide me in the right direction, where they'd be like, dude, listen, like you need to push yourself a little bit more. If you do this and you do this, this is where you can go. But I still didn't do that. I was learning on my own, And meanwhile, in the back, my father was still always chirping in my ear. You suck at this. You can't do this. He was never at any games ever, Yeah, I can't remember besides maybe some like early baseball years, him being at those games. But yeah, never any football games. And in junior high, to wrap things up here, up to the junior high years, I start to realize that I'm okay at other things too, like track and field. I remember my buddy being like, oh, I'm out there and I'm winning, shot put and discus every single day. And at the time I was like a runner, not the best because we had 2 of the best sprinters in the state at the time and a long jumper. So I'm like behind them, behind the scenes. It's not like I'm like super slow, but I'm not super fast. So I was like, well, you know what? I'll give that a shot. And I did the shot put first and I won without any training at it. And I was just like, oh, I kind of like this, And then from there, that also started to build. And in other words, backtracking to like that little dark time where I was like with a bunch of misfits, I could have been addicted to all kinds of drugs or alcohol or whatever. I found another outlet and started to travel in the right direction without even knowing that I was, because at the time I'm slightly depressed still because of what's happening at home. But there's a little bit, like the wheels are turning, but they're just very, very slow. They're slowly turning. And then this leads into the high school and everything else, but I want to get to that next week. I just wanted to fill you guys in during that time frame of my life. And I didn't want to tread so much on my father this go around. If you guys want to know more about that, obviously, I can get into the nitty gritty much later in life. But from what you guys saw there from the beginning of middle school and junior high, I was heading down a bad path, but I hit that fork in the road. And luckily for me, I did take the hard path. I took the path less traveled. It's much harder. It's always harder to do the right thing. But it got me into sports. It got me into the weight room. So I started to figure out what I wanted to do in life. Started obviously heading into the sports and lifting aspect of things. And next week, I'm going to tell you guys how I progressed through high school and how sports and lifting was still an outlet and how it continued to grow and led into bigger and better things.